Is Joe online? Joe just texted if it started. So I don't know if he's looking at the wrong link, or maybe you could. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February 6th, 2025 Agenda Meeting of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. I'm Katie Sieben, the chair of the commission. Other commissioners are here, and I'll take the roll. Commissioner Hom.
Here.
Commissioner Tuma.
Here.
And Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
We have 3 items on our agenda, and our intention is to wrap all 3 of these up by 12:30 today. Our first item will be introduced by Dr. Strauss. When you're ready, please introduce item number 1.
Thank you, Chair Sieben, and good morning, Commissioners. Item number 1 is docket number E999-CI-24-397 in the matter of a Commission inquiry on a utilities MISO reliability-based demand curve opt-out plan. The question before the Commission is, should the Commission accept the December 27th, 2024 filings from Xcel Energy, Minnesota Power, and Otter Power? We have 1 late filed document, an amended version of decision option 1 from Commissioner Hom. I have some copies up here. Thank you.
Thank you. So on this item, first, Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. I do not have any question to anybody, and also the nature of the sensitivity of this discussion. I can just move the decision option 1 to accept that the utilities filing and making sure that it doesn't mean that we are approving the cost recovery in the rate case.
And decision option 1 includes that new language too?
Yes, my modified decision 1 include that language.
Okay. I see that. Is there any discussion of Commissioner Hom's motion? Hearing none, then Commissioner Hom.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion passes 4-0. Thank you. The parties can come forward for this, for agenda item 2, if you'd like to. And Mr. Harsha, Ms. Nikitas, thank you again for your work on this item. Please reintroduce it when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Sieben and Commissioners. Item number 2 is docket number G-002/M-23-518 in the matter of Xcel Energy's Natural Gas Innovation Plan. The question before the Commission is, should the Commission approve, reject, or modify Xcel Energy's 2023 Natural Gas Innovation Plan? There were 2 documents added to the record since Tuesday. On Wednesday, February 5th, Commissioner Tuma filed a modification to Decision Option 6, alternative language for Decision Option 10, and additions to Decision Options 20 and 26. Also on Wednesday, Commissioner Sullivan filed a modification to Decision Option 24. These new decision options have been distributed to commissioners, and physical copies are available at the front of the large hearing room. Staff has no further comments, but is available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harsh. We had a full discussion on Tuesday, and so my intention, again, just so every commissioners are following and the parties are following, is we just slowly but deliberately go through the party preferred decision option grid or the corresponding decision options. And then I was thinking we could discuss the commissioners' new proposals when we get to those issues, or when we get to those. Yes, when we sort of run it like more like a rate case, where we're just going through them meticulously. But thanks to our staff, we're really well organized here, and I think that will work out just fine. Does that sound okay to parties too? Okay, so then I think Mr. Whitty too will be taking more votes here than just 1 or 2. So let me know if we're going too fast or anything like that. But for example, I think we could probably pretty easily go ahead and move decision option 3 to approve Xcel's proposed portfolio of pilots as modified, that's coming up. Is there any discussion or objection to that? Okay, then I would move decision option 3. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes, the motion passes. Then overarching recommendations for RNG pilots. Do any commissioners want to move or have a proposal related to that? For staff alternative 4, 5, or Cub Cure OAG modified 5?
No, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Tuma, discussion?
6 is kind of meant to be overarching. It's under SOC, and so I don't know if you want to deal with that here. I have no changes to the SOC proposal, but 6 is kind of a universal change.
Can we see I'm not organized, your new 6 sort of addresses this overall, is that right?
Yeah,
Can you,
it requires them to put the first
on the
5
screen?
years.
or no? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it
Commissioner
requires them
Sullivan.
to put the first 5 years into the budget, and then hopefully gives them flexibility as the goal to what happens in future budgets, because you may have a program that's 20 years long.
I think that this language, Tuma modified 6, is consistent with the discussion we had the other day.
It's trying to be.
Ms. Steinhauser, apologies for screwing up your name. Will you please state your name and let us know what you think about Tuma modified 6?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Lauren Steinhauser on behalf of Xcel Energy. Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, we see what you're getting at. I actually don't think it gives that flexibility if you just read the plain language of it. A proposed modification, if you're interested in an additional language, would be to remove that last clause for which the cost falls in and just say if included in the plan. So it would be included in the budget would be included if the pilot was in the plan.
In subsequent plans?
Yes.
Yes. So again, you would strike at the end there, it would read, its subsequent NGIA plans, what?
If
Well, and
included.
Let me just walk this through with you, Ms. Steinhauser. If a pilot has costs that continue outside of the plan and is placed in the plan, because I think the language that I'm trying to use with 6, if we get back to where it is, the last part is I'm trying to deal with the situation where you have a 20-year plan, okay, or 20-year contract, okay? And so only the 5 years of budget that you have goes in 1. And if you decide to have a pilot continue in 2, then only years 5 through 10 go in. And if you continue to do the pilot on da-da-da-da-da, but at any time you should be able to say, I'm not going to do a pilot. So I think the language for which it falls in is not meant to be restrictive. It's just, it's meant to be restrictive. It's just meant to be instructive that I don't want you to be stacking plans is all it's trying to say. And so I get your flexibility. So if you want to put some language in there, if a pilot has costs that continue outside of the year and is continued as a pilot or something like that, I think that's what you're trying to accomplish. So,
Ms. Steinhauser, what's your response, please? Or
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, I think with that clarity, we're on the same page. If you feel like your language gets us there, then that works for us. But we just wanted to make sure that we were still moving towards that flexibility that we had discussed. So
yeah, if you decide to even in year 4 to turn into base rates and come to us and we approve it, it doesn't exist anymore. It's off in base rates. You're not forced to put it in a future plan and block out availability of plan dollars for plan 2 or plan 3. That's the intent. And then I would look to Cub and because it was just kind of your urging that we put some sort of restrictions on here, and I want to make sure I'm tracking with it and you're okay with it.
Mr. Crawford, please state your name.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, Brandon Crawford with the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota. Yes, we did have this together with the AG's office, and I think on Tuesday we'd recommended including that additional pilot language, recognizing that if the Commission does approve a full-scale rollout of something, it is no longer a pilot. We believe that your language gets to that, and it does allow that flexibility for the company while maintaining the restrictions around where those costs go, so customers aren't paying for constant increases and costs being recovered in locations outside of the NGIA when that's not appropriate.
And you're okay with them having flexibility to say, I'm going to turn it into a regular program and it's not going to block a future budget year. Like, I mean, that was the concern I have. I mean, if you're going to budget something over 20 years, you should put it in those budgets. But if it becomes available, you're saying go right ahead and create a new program to fill in that budget, right?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I can speak for CUB. I can't speak for OAG on that. I believe your language does get to that, and I think we had contemplated, or the Commission had contemplated that within the context of the EMLD pilot. Obviously there's going to be a full petition by the company. If they do request to pull something out of NGIA, we would be able to evaluate the reasonableness of it at that point in time.
Excellent. Ms. Hinderly, if you have a different tack on this, I'd like to hear it.
Thank you, Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma. I think the one thing
And
that
state your name, please.
Oh, thank you. Catherine Hinderly, Office of the Attorney General, Residential Utilities Division. I think the one thing that might be helpful to have clarity on is whether capital costs, if they're simply rolled into the rate-based budget, would still be part of the plan. In my view, that's still a pilot, right? That's a pilot that they've built that are costs that ratepayers are paying. And what I don't think we want to end up with is, folks saying, well, we've rolled that into rate base, from the NGO rider, and are those in? And so that might just be helpful to have clarity here now for what is being contemplated, because I could see that being where we might not have a meeting of the minds going
Wouldn't
forward.
we decide that issue, though, in the NGA filing?
I think you could, yes. I
Or
think
in
that would work.
a future filing that they want to roll it in the rate base, we can make that determination then. I'd hate to lock ourselves into a decision because I don't know. I'm trying to imagine all the different scenarios, and I'd be kind of scared to lock us in at this stage. But I get what you're saying, and certainly would be an open argument at that stage.
And from that perspective, I think that's fine. That was the one point of confusion that I saw. Maybe not everybody was at least maybe I was just the one not meeting of the minds out there. But I think that's helpful. We can have that conversation if they want to pull it out of the rider, put it into base rates, in an NGA filing in a rate case. We'll just be clear to know that then that's being pulled out. Like it's then also being pulled out of future NGIA kind of budget caps. So.
I mean, we can get there. I think once we get to the point of putting it into rate base like that, and then it's a utility service. It has to be to qualify in the statute. That we've had that debate around the tree planting type stuff, whether that could ever be a utility service way the statute is drafted, unless the legislature changes it. So there's all these little scenarios we can go down, rabbit holes that I think we should just save that. But recognize that possibly could be a debate. Ms. Steinhauser, are you okay with that? Or?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma agreed that should be something that's addressed at a future date when we're dealing with moving.
So I think the language works, Madam Chair. Probably a little massaging by Mr. Whitty when we're drafting the order, but I'll pay attention to that when we get down to it, make sure it says what we say. So,
Commissioner Sullivan, you had your hand up.
I think Commissioner Tuma's questions were getting at it. I maybe Ms. Hinderly, you had said you still view it as a pilot project if it were to, at a future date, be moved into base rates. And I guess the way I'm thinking about this is, if say a project goes really well and just an RNG project and it's been successful and it looks really, it doesn't have to be a pilot anymore because it's been successful. Are you saying that you would still see that as a pilot if the utility were to want to keep moving forward on that project, but just call it now a part of their general service? Is that?
Ms. Hinderly.
Thank you, Chair Stephen, Commissioner Sullivan. I think I was speaking specifically to capital projects, and I think what we just want is the ability to have the conversation. A lot of this is with, the highlights around the Sherco hydrogen project for the potential for a stranded asset, that we simply want the ability to, if something has been a pilot, it hasn't gone forward as successfully as we had hoped, it's not being used in utility service. We want the ability to argue that in a rate case later. If it's in the current pilot budget, I think that's fine. I think the clarity is helpful that Commissioner Tuma has provided, but I don't think it needs to be decided today. But I am very specifically thinking about the clarity for capital projects, for an RNG contract or for a pilot that goes well, that's, primarily kind of, we'd think of as being O&M, like electrification, for example. Like that, I think we're not, if they want to move that into a permanent offering, we wouldn't argue that that's still in NGIA. I think we're talking about the specific proposals now, what happens to that money, given that it's being depreciated over a longer time for the two capital projects.
Okay, thank you. I got it. Thanks.
Mr. Sutton, please state your name for the record.
Charles Sutton on behalf of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49, and the Carpenters Union. Chair Stephen, Commissioner, I think we would just express some concern about 6 as we see it, the legislature set overall caps for the first set of pilots, or for each set of pilots that the utilities are able to bring forward. And as we see it, all of these pilots have costs. And almost all of them, I mean, some of them maybe don't, but almost all of them have benefits that exceed beyond the 5-year window. But nonetheless, as we had envisioned NGIA, it's, those costs are captured within the first set of caps that are here. And I appreciate the OAG's point, I think made last time about not wanting to stack RNG in the second pilot. But my concern is, we don't know what the innovative projects that the utility might bring forward in 5 years. There isn't, as I understand, the same restrictions in terms of that 50% fuel. So we could actually be eating up some of that headroom in the second innovation plan that could be used for other types of pilots that necessarily aren't RNG. Maybe they will bring RNG. They could be some of the innovative things with small farms that I know Commissioner Tuma mentioned before. So my concern is just by requiring all the costs to be extended that go by essentially taking costs and spreading them out across different pilots. We're actually kind of reducing this budget and also taking out some of the headroom that we might want in 5 years for some innovative projects that might come forward at this point. And someone could correct me on this, but I don't believe this is how we dealt with in Centerpoint's NGIA as
Mr.
well.
Sutton, I think I hear your concern, but I also think that like the language that Commissioner Tuma just talked through with Xcel, they said they could work with it. I think it will help just give more clarity. It doesn't mean that a particular pilot, if it extends beyond 5 years, that's fine. They'll just have to account for it in their next filing. And that's, I think, consistent with what we discussed on Tuesday, and I think the language is okay. I hear you, Mr. Sutton, but I think we're ready to move forward with it unless any commissioners have any other.
Concern. It is meant to we don't want I'm trying to avoid that stacking down the road, and I know that means that we're restricting budgets as we go along, but that's the point, I think.
And maybe it will stack, but that we just want it filed so that we know what we're doing then too, and can keep account of the costs.
So, Madam Chair, do you want to make a motion to
No, you go ahead.
move 6? Oh, no, I didn't know if you wanted motions, so
Yeah.
I'll move 6 as I modified it.
Commissioner Hahn.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. I would like to make an overarching comment at this point. I think I may go on the direction of a little bit of inconsistent with what I did with the Centerpoint, because Xcel Energy is different from Centerpoint. Centerpoint is a natural gas only company. Xcel Energy is a dual fuel energy company. Xcel Energy has an electric service. So Xcel has a lot more flexibility over Centerpoint. So I hope party doesn't see that as inconsistent. I am trying to make change based on circumstance. Second, Centerpoint was the first one. So we have to be more flexible and give them more flexibility in the pilot. Now we saw what they proposed. Xcel Energy shouldn't have a duplicate in that area. So hopefully, I think party doesn't see that as an inconsistent position, and then I can support the motion.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. That's helpful, Commissioner Hahn. On Commissioner Tuma's motion of modified 6, Commissioner Hahn,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion prevails. So now we're kind of getting into the meat of the pilots here. And before we do that, I have this language that's still changing as we speak. So I'm going to ask staff if Ms. Nikitas, can you put the language on the screen? And the reason I'm trying to put this out now is just because I think it's consistent with what we discussed the other day, and it's sort of in line with what my thoughts around this are in line with Commissioner Hahn's. I was persuaded in the record by the clean energy organizations concerns that there could be more effort put into the electrification space in Xcel's overall NGIA proposal. And I also think that, like, although there's support for all of the pilots in here, we have to think as a commission about like how to best utilize limited dollars in this first NGIA plan for Xcel. And so what this would do, and we can still talk about it and we'll get the parties' comments on it, but kind of what I'm hoping to do here is as we go through the pilots, if commissioners want to like trim any of them, for example, or reject them, we think about like, there are two choices in my mind. Like you can either just not spend that money and reduce the overall NGIA plan for Xcel, or we could put it into these other pilots that I think we had a discussion about the other day. So the thinking is that Mr. Whitty, if you have it when we're ready. The thinking is like, if we cut a pilot, for example, or an R&D thing, then how could you put that money to better use? And what I kind of jammed together with staff, including this morning, was a version of the CEO's 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we discussed on Tuesday, because I heard, and I'd want confirmation from CEE, for example, that the commercial air source heat pump program might not be something that would fit into ECO. And the other electrification, building envelope pilot that was talked about by the CEOs might be something too that we could like redeploy some money to. And so but I get to that, like, this is difficult to do. And it would be difficult for Xcel, I think, to pull together kind of new pilots. But, so that's why we'll give everybody time to think about this, if it's feasible, the way I've come up with this. So, okay. I guess, sorry, I chatted some changes, like, a
I thought
little
you were
bit
just
ago.
killing time to get it up, so
Yeah.
you're doing a good job.
So require Xcel to propose in this NGA plan, in this 5-year plan, a commercial air source heat pump and thermal energy storage project with like out of this new redeployed money, which is, we're not sure what the commission will decide, that would be up to 25% of that, whatever later we decide. And then the second pilot would be, I was thinking of it as targeted towards Xcel gas service territory, low-income customers. And the hope is that it could be like a pilot that would do like the options for around weatherization, and if it is like, building envelope stuff or energy efficiency, not like scattered across a whole bunch of people, but that you target either multifamily units or households with like all the stuff. And then do that for low-income folks, and that's more targeted on the, residential side. And that would be like 75% of whatever we come up with, the commission comes up with here. And then this is where it's sausage making, I get, but like it'd be a negative checkoff process, because we're trying to do it as fast as possible so that Xcel can still propose this and move forward in this plan. But so we'd ask the Xcel to meet with stakeholders prior to submitting its new pilot proposals as above, and then file it with the commission for a negative checkoff process. So, Ms. Steinhauser, I know this is a lot to put up there, but do you have any comments off the top of your head about like if it's doable or anything that immediately you think is problematic?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. I think, broadly speaking, the company is supportive of doing these types of projects. Top of mind to me is the requirement that anything we do in NGIA doesn't overlap into our SIP and DSM programs in ECO. And so we would just look for support from the department that this would work in the NGIA plan.
Yeah, that's sort of like what my ear was listening hard for on Tuesday, was like this. Hopefully these two proposals would be things that aren't eligible for SIP, so that's why it would come here too. Ms. Eichten, Commissioner Sullivan, do you want, go ahead.
So I just want to make sure that I understand what's going on here. So we basically take the CEOs 1 through 4 from the other day, and we pull out 1 and 3 as the projects that we heard kind of the most interest around, and kind of put them in a parking lot, and whatever savings, or if there are savings that we find through going through the remainder of the decision options, then we would apply those. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, sorry, this is like the first one, the first bullet, a commercial air source heat pump, is what Mr. Dufferin described on Tuesday as like.
I feel like that was CEO 3, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to that where, and we can ask Mr. Dufferin too after we hear from the CEOs, but the idea was that we do a pilot similar to what he said, a commercial thermal energy air source heat pump pilot, like was described in CEO new 3. And if I don't have the language here right, but that I didn't.
Can I ask another question?
And then the 25%, I just didn't want that pilot to like overtake the spending in the residential. So that's why I put it's 25% of whatever the commission comes up with from, we don't know the number yet because, we're not proposing to increase the overall budget for NGA. And then the second bullet is sort of a mashed up together 1, 2, and 4. The big thing is like we'd let the parties and Xcel figure it out, but the idea is it's targeting low-income households in their service territory, and it's sort of like a package of proposals that could help families. Does that help?
So it's like weatherization, basically, for we would use dollars, we could put them into weatherization in effect, right?
Yep.
Could I ask another question?
Yeah, do you want to hear from the parties first what they think, and then you could ask questions if they're not answered? Because they might help me with these questions
No,
too.
that's fine. Yep.
Okay. So the CEOs, if you could please introduce yourself and then let us know what you think about this.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. Caitlin Eichten with Fresh Energy, representing the clean energy organizations. We actually worked yesterday with CE and the department to put together some additional analysis to estimate minimum budgets for both the commercial air source heat pump and thermal energy storage pilot and the residential deep energy retrofits pilot that reflect CEO's new 3 and 1, respectively. In case they were of use for today's deliberations, we have printouts in case they'd be helpful, but based on our analysis in partnership with CE, the minimum budgets we calculated for both of these pilots, which are actually aligned with what Chair Sieben, with what you've put together and have on the screen. Both of those budgets, we estimated a minimum of $2.5 million. That
For
would be
each?
scalable as a minimum to include in the plan, but could be scalable based on the interest of the commission and what else is approved and what other decision options are approved in the plan. The commercial air source heat pump and thermal storage pilot at $2.5 million would retrofit, based on our analysis, 5 to 7 commercial gas boilers with air source heat pumps and storage systems. And we prepared a description for the deep energy retrofit pilot that would focus on hydronic heating systems in low-income households to make it distinct from the deep energy retrofit pilot approved in CenterPoint's NGI plan to generate different learnings, to Commissioner Hahn's earlier point, than what was approved in that plan. And this budget could be scaled, at very flexible since it's for residential 1 to 4 unit household units. Yeah, happy to provide any additional information.
Ms. Eichten, that's helpful, and maybe you called it deep energy retrofit pilot. Would that be, that's kind of what I was trying to get at with all these things. Is it generally the same thing you were thinking?
Based on my initial review of, that second bullet point that's on the screen, it's in line with what we were considering for this pilot, and we'd be happy to work, like you said, with Xcel and other stakeholders more to flesh out what exactly this pilot would look like. I think we started to do that over the past few days, but a little more work would be helpful.
And for the first budget, I heard $2.5 million to do 5 to 7 commercial boilers or commercial projects. And what's the budget? Like, I know it's scalable, but what's the numbers for the second bullet?
Yeah, I would, thank you, Chair Sieben, I would defer to CE on that. I think that was kind of just a minimum. I don't think we have an actual number of 1 to 4 unit households for that budget, but that would include kind of estimated total costs for project management, contractor engagement, energy analysis, and evaluation. But based on our initial conversations yesterday, we thought that could, go up to $6 million or more, depending on what's available and what's of interest to the Commission.
Either of them could be less, too, if we don't get to the, I mean, I guess that's a decision we can make later after we get through more of the decision options here. But Mr. Dufferin, thanks for your work on this in the record and your comments on Tuesday. Can you state your name again and then tell us what you think of this and if it would work?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sieben. Chris Dufferin with Center for Energy and Environment. Thank you for this proposal. We heard your comments on Tuesday and actually took some of this back to the office and had some people work on ideas and budgets. And as Ms. Eichten said, we do, and I think she described it very well, the commercial heat pump pilot we see as kind of a base of $2.5 million. It's hard to go much lower than that and get the kind of findings that you'd want to get out of it because of the number and the expense of these units. We do think there's a good Minnesota-made option actually to study as part of this. It's a company up in Rogers. We've been up to see their units. And they're pretty innovative, and they are doing installs in Minnesota right now. So,
is it they install the air source heat pump on, or what is it? Or
yeah, they're commercial scale, Chair Sieben. They're commercial scale packaged units. So it's to replace a commercial boiler, and it's a heat pump, and it can be combined with storage. The whole idea is it's a company that's looking at finding companies that want to do deep decarbonization in their businesses. So it's pretty unique. Yeah, we'd be happy to share more information as part of the filing if you chose to go that route.
And then for the second bullet, this deep energy retrofit pilot.
Yeah, the deep energy retrofit pilot we see as, again, a base of $2.5 million. But as Ms. Eichten mentioned, it could really be scaled. What we thought of that could be unique, thinking of Commissioner Ham's point on Tuesday that he's looking for unique opportunities here, is that we have a real challenge with hydronically heated homes. And so it's boiler systems and how to do decarbonization in these homes. There's a lot of them in Xcel's territory. There's a lot of them in low-income parts of Xcel's territory. There's 2 different options. One is an air-to-water heat pump, which is usually then with a backup electric boiler. And then another option where you maintain the gas boiler as a backup system and use a mini-split air source heat pump. So it's probably more detail than you wanted, but there is an option here to test 2 different systems and really see what is going to work in different housing types and come forward with some learnings from that. As Ms. Eichten mentioned, it could be scaled up. So really, if that was the pilot that you're interested in, it just depends on, of course, your budgets and where this all comes out. That could be scaled up, and it would just mean more homes that we could serve.
And I know like the process for this is tricky a little bit, but like jamming it into this NGA plan, you think if Ms. Steinhauser thought the process here would work, you and the other stakeholders are willing to meet with Xcel to try to help get it going here pretty quickly, and the timeline here might work, in your estimation?
Commissioner Stephen, yes, we think the timeline could definitely work.
Do the OAG or CUB, or do you want to have any comments on this? I don't know if you do, but go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. I think that this type of approach is something that really parties discussed a lot in comments, so I think there's a lot of record support for this. For the RUD's part, we had recommended moving the carbon capture budgets, anything that's changed for that, into something to serve low-income customers more directly, and your second option here certainly fits that from our perspective. Also, I think that we had, said in our recommendation that environmental attribute purchases, we understand, there's a lot of negotiation when you're off-taking gas, but the environmental attribute purchases, for AMP Swift, for instance, Xcel increased that from its initial plan. And so the pathway that CUB, CURE, and the OAG put forward reduced that by $2.74 million to come back down. There's also, I think, some options for some savings in the R&D areas, as Chair Stephen, you alluded to. There's $500,000 that's currently going in Xcel's plan to essentially a membership due for an organization that we had opposed, and then $100,000 for carbon capture. So we think there's a lot of flexibility that the Commission has in the budget, and I would just note the difference between Xcel's plan and the CUB, CURE, and OAG pathway is a little under $5 million, but it sounds like that's comparable to there's space for the Commission to find space to move this money around within the necessary requirements of the statute, I think. So,
Mr. Crawford, did you have something? And then the department we have to hear from too.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'll just add to what the OAG said. We had recommended 8B, which I think this decision option that you proposed is much more
Similar.
detailed and useful, I think. We had recommended within that 8B this kind of negative checkoff process. We do view that as workable and look forward to discussing with stakeholders and Xcel how to move this forward.
And I see Mr. Fryer, I don't know if you are on today in place of Dr. Lieb, or if you wanted to, but why don't you go ahead and state your name, and I'd welcome any comments you have on this proposal here.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Anthony Fryer with the Minnesota Department of Commerce. Just speaking on behalf of the question that you had regarding the sort of eco threshold here. Dr. Lieb is online as well as other staff, similar team to Tuesday. It's certainly my opinion, with the details that we have at the moment, that this would be. These would be difficult efforts at this time to approve within ECO due to cost effectiveness, due to R&D caps that Xcel is subject to in ECO, and the unlikeliness that these pilots would be ready for ECO programming at this stage. So just wanted to provide that clarification from the department's perspective.
Oh, that's really helpful. And Dr. Lieb, do you have any comments overall on, I know it's a little tricky because there's still a blank up there, but maybe perhaps in terms of the negative checkoff process, if Xcel proposes these new pilots, will it work from the department's perspective to work with stakeholders and then, work within the negative checkoff time period here from your perspective?
Chair Stephen, yeah, I think we're fine with that. We support this direction.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan, I don't know if that helps, but why don't we go back to you for questions first?
No, all of my questions were answered. I can go on and ask a bunch of redundant things, but no, you got it all. So,
Commissioner Tuma?
Steinhauser, if I understood from CEE, to make this kind of work, it needs about $5 million to just to kind of baseline to get it off the ground to make it work. So that's your understanding too?
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, we haven't run numbers on these pilots, so I'm not able to put a number to them today, or at least right in this moment. I can see if I can get that information.
And then I'm looking at, it's table 15 in the briefing papers, but it's page 2 of our decision options, staff condensed in the parties' preferred decision options, where they kind of describe the parties' positions. On the second page of that, they condensed table 5. And so I'm trying to get these numbers reconciled in my head. My guess is that
And can I interject, Commissioner Tuma, with a process thing? My intention would be like sort of that we talked about this so that as we go through the other things, I wouldn't move this now because we don't know what the other decisions are by the commission. And then, so I don't know if that helps, but keep going.
I'm tracking with you. I just want to make sure we got to create headroom if we're going to make this work. And that's what I'm trying to understand what I'm working with. So I'm looking at table 15 and I'm just kind of looking at the different proposals that are in there. There's a lot of things we can do plus or minus, but my guess, the intent of this is that the overall number that I see total budget of Xcel, XLCE, and others column is 55.38, and that would be still the same number. We wouldn't move that. Is that kind of how we're looking at this? That number would be the
That's
final
sort of
number?
up to us to decide, I think, as we go through the other pilots, but correct.
Right.
We could either like parking lot it into this proposal, for example, and then just redeploy the money. But if the commission wanted to just flat out reject a pilot, then it would change the overall total budget, is the way I was thinking about it.
My understanding, thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding, we'd still, that 55, this is the question I had, the 55.38, there was actually still some headroom. That's your budget of what you laid out to expend, but there's still some headroom in what you can under statute spend. And that number's not here. And that was where I wanted to understand what that number was. Because this 55.38 is below what you can per statute spend.
It could just be additive, in other words.
Right,
perhaps.
that's what I'm trying to get to, yep.
Okay, I get it. Ms. Steinhauser?
Thank you, Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma. So the additional statutory allocated budget for NGIA is the reserve amount. So it, on table 15, it's 1.01
So the
million.
reserve, okay, that was my next question. The reserve gets me to your top.
Statutory cap, yep.
And so that reserve is there, but if we get to the end and we're, $250,000 short, are you saying we absolutely need that reserve at 1.01 million? Or is that reserve something that's kind of available as, I hate to use the word slush fund, but a fund to move dollars around in a scheme like we're talking about here?
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, we can use the reserve funds for these pilots, if that's what you're asking. Again, there are lots of other balances that need to be done, but yes, that money is available to put towards these pilots, assuming we meet all the other.
And this might be a tough question to ask, and maybe something you can think about. I would assume that you want some reserve, to help you out. I guess where is the kind of the bottom line of what you really want in there with reserve for everything else that's in there. And so, if you could think about that, you don't have to answer it now. I've been putting you on the spot, but that would be helpful as we start to get to the end of this, and the numbers are wherever the numbers are at. So that'd be appreciated. That answers my question.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan?
I did have a question for the department and Mr. Duffrin with CEE. And I had asked earlier if this would be similar to weatherization. Obviously, there would be some differences because I think weatherization, focuses on weatherizing and focusing on energy efficiency upgrades. with gas specifically. But are you thinking that you would tie into the weatherization program to help identify houses, and maybe it's too soon to tell, but I'm just, wondering, if we could get a ballpark for how many houses could be potentially, served by looking at what it costs to weatherize a house under the weatherization program.
Mr. Duffrin.
Thank you, Chair Sieben, Commissioner Sullivan. Yeah, we do see weatherization as a component of this pilot, and it's going to be one of the tools. However, I think the other piece we're looking at here is something that the weatherization program is not doing, which is electrifying and decarbonizing these homes using air source heat pumps, air to water heat pumps. So there's an opportunity here to go really well above and beyond weatherization. My suggestion for the pilot to Xcel would be to keep it separate from all of their other existing programs. So ECO, keep it separate from DOE weatherization funded programs. Run it as a separate pilot. There's immense need for low-income weatherization, as you know, Commissioner. So there's not a shortage of homes that we could find to do this pilot.
Right. Mr. Fryer?
Commissioner Sullivan, just to agree with Mr. Duffrin's assessment that this would work, I think, very well at this time as a standalone outside of ECO, outside of DOE weatherization, and has the potential to redefine weatherization in the years to come.
Okay. The number I was working from, and maybe it's not, maybe it's not relevant, but I think that weatherization, the program puts about $8,500 into a house, and it doesn't, cost-benefit tests don't apply to it, so they can go above and beyond. So $8,500 a house and, $2.5 million, that's about 300 houses. So that's kind of what I was thinking about, but if it's a separate program, maybe that doesn't compute.
Jump in there, Chair Sieben. Commissioner, I think the cost will be quite a bit higher per home just because of this electrification component, which is also the potential for learning here is how are we going to decarbonize these homes in the long run? So we would need to move beyond weatherization. I don't think it would be innovative or something that could be done really through NGIA if we didn't do something above and beyond. So I think the costs for these units are going to be more than your typical weatherization package.
Our staff is awesome and has like a percentage tracking spreadsheet so that as we continue to make decisions, commissioners, they'll track that we're ensuring that we stay above the 50% alternative fuels thing and the other components. But why don't we keep moving ahead unless there are other questions with this like as a proposed idea, and like I appreciate the parties' comments because I think like if it can work, and it sounds like it could, it's also worthwhile to think about like if we trim something a little bit here, could this go into this instead? So, or as Commissioner Tuma said, it could be additive depending on the decision. But Commissioner Tuma, did you want to start with the SOC Center pilot or make a proposal on that?
I do not. I mean, I'm satisfied with where that one is at. I do have some thoughts on AMP Swift, though. So
yeah, okay. So we can then. Does any other commissioner have a question about SOC Center? Okay, then AMP Swift. Commissioner Tuma.
Madam Chair, in light of our recent discussion, I'm glad that you brought it forward because I was going back and forth on this, and now I'm more convinced than ever that 8A is our approach here. this program is, again, only the purchase of the attributes. It is already an existing thing going on that is being built because of California credits, and so we're just participating in it. So I don't think we need to participate in it at $6.2 million to learn something. I think 3.5 is more than enough to get learning in there. So I think I am more convinced than ever now that 8A is our path forward on this one. That would give us $2.74 million for other projects.
So you're saying that I was looking at 8A in the chart, which is the decision option language says remove the 2.74 million from the NGA plan budget under AMP Swift and Ms. Nikitas, sorry, are you comfortable if we do just 8A but not 8? Or we should do, Commissioner Tuma, your proposal, sorry, I just want to make sure we're all clear what we're doing. Would it be 8 on the screen? Or
I would think so, yeah. 8A, that's the combination of those two.
Mr. Harsh?
Chair Sieben, Commissioners, just some clarification on the decision option language. If the intent would be to take the budget that's removed from AMP Swift and apply it to one of the pilots that Commissioner Sieben has with described in her new decision option, then 8A would remove the funds entirely from the plan and not allow you to reallocate them, where 8 by itself would trim AMP Swift's budget without determining what to do with those funds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then let's move 8, and then, because we didn't move my language yet, if that,
That's what I'm trying
Everybody-
to accomplish, Madam Chair,
yeah.
so
no, thanks to our staff. Does that make sense for other commissioners? Any discussion? Commissioner Hunt?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Overall, I think I'm more comfortable with the 5-year limitation that we already decide, but I still have some concern with the overall cost, not going through the bidding process, because it is a cost effective at $6 because I'm willing to pay at $7. That doesn't mean that that's the fair market price. If market fair price was a $5, we have to find a way to buy things at $5. But without bidding process, I don't think we have that opportunity, and Repair didn't have that opportunity to get there. So I have an overall concern. Still, I can support this one because we are limiting it as a 5, and also I think this is a pilot. But I think some point of time we need to inject the requirement of the request for proposal and bidding process. That way we can protect the ratepayers further.
Thank you, Commissioner Hom. Are we ready to vote on Commissioner Tuma's 8? Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Okay, then next that's it for AMP Swift for now. Then Pine Bend, does anyone want to talk about Pine Bend? Otherwise,
I'm sure I do have a
okay, sorry, Commissioner
alternative
Tuma.
path forward on that one, and to do it, I'm thinking about what to do as far as the numbers. So I'm still contemplating that. But my alternative 10 was to ask the company to tell us what their lessons learned. I mean, I think that's the weakness of this proposal, is that I don't know where it leads us to, other than buying more gas from Pine Bend. So I don't know if it gives us some lessons learned to do a competitive bidding process to get RNG that is in the metropolitan area, essentially in your service territory, getting people to bid to get RNG onto our system. And I don't know if that's where you're intending to learn more about Pine Bend. If that's the case, then let's have that lessons learned and have it flow into another pilot or something, a program, after we're done here, as opposed to just spending more money on Pine Bend. Not that Pine Bend's a bad deal. I'm just saying this is a pilot program, it should lead to something. So that was the goal of 10, is to say, tell us what your lessons learned are and give us a proposal of what would be the ability for Rice County waste facility to hook up to Pine Bend, or the facilities over in Burnsville that we have thrown a lot of my garbage in as a youth. So what are you trying to accomplish? Or that's what I'm trying to accomplish with 10, is kind of guide you towards giving us something. Does this work or doesn't it work?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Thank you, Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma. The company supports Tuma Alternative 10, and that makes sense to us.
And then, Madam Chair, budget-wise, Ms. Steinhauser, is there something like, what's magical about the amount of money that we have in the budget, 2.9? I mean, is it something that is a minimum they're going to contract with or anything? I'm thinking, looking at this, thinking $1 million is more than enough to me to learn lessons about buying from them, and I would probably cap the budget at something like that. But I didn't know if there was something magical. I couldn't find anything in the record real quickly last night, but you tell me, is there something magical about 2.9?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, the Pine Bend project does have a higher abatement cost, so I think we're just trying to find a balance. But I would call on Edward Weinberg, who has the relationship here, to understand.
He was getting antsy behind you.
Yeah.
You're right in the line of view, and I saw him moving around, and so
he's got the answers for you.
Mr. Weinberg, welcome back. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Edward Weinberg with Xcel Energy. So regarding the question about Pine Bend, the indicative price that we received from the developers was based on a minimum offtake of 20,000 decatherms a year. And so I believe that when we modeled that, that came up to about $2.3 million of NGIA budget. So that I would consider would be kind of a minimum threshold where the developers were willing to sell us
that's their minimum
the attributes.
to make this whole thing work.
Yes,
they
so
wanted that.
if we were to go below, I think commercially it would be difficult to get an agreement with.
So it's not a deal where you say, "Hey, look, we'll buy some of your gas. You got gas flowing to us anyways, so here's our price." Okay. So
2.34 would be that minimum budget spend for the 20,000 decatherms.
Got it. So in the way this sits right now, we could get it down to 2.4 to give yourself some headroom, and it could still be working. We still could get lessons learned if we want to go down this path.
Absolutely.
The challenge, Commissioner Tuma, is if we cut that budget too much, we might get below the 50% threshold. And so I know this is tricky, but we got to balance out a bunch of things. So I don't know if if we want to talk with staff or you want to talk with them about that, because we have to keep above that threshold too, but we haven't gotten through the other ones
Let's
either.
put this in a parking lot, and let me say that I would be supportive of 2.4. The abatement cost is high here, so I could also be supportive of just zeroing it out too. But nonetheless, if we were to do it, I would be supportive of 2.4 with Tuma's 10, and we can put that in the parking lot and talk to staff what that does to the overall numbers.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That's good. Does that sound good, Commissioner Hum and Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Stephen. Yes, I think my original initial position is to reject everything and start from the scratch with the bidding process and set the budget at the 50%. But also, I think I respect the stakeholder and the Xcel's effort to it. I think I can agree with your approach.
Okay, then next, are we good moving on to the Sherco project next?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, Commissioner Hom, do you want to start here?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. So I think Tuesday we have a significant discussion about this. I have a more trouble than answer from Xcel on this one because we have a standing order on all coal power plant running on the seasonal operation and then economic operation. Under that circumstance, there is a potential to run this auxiliary boiler for this customer, but answer I got on Tuesday is, oh, it's not going to be used much. In that case, why this electrolyzer is needed if you are not using it? I think even after 2027, which is in service state of this electrolyzer, if you are not using enough, what's the point of doing it? So that means that there should be a need for this, and there will be a potential significant use of this service. Otherwise, this project is not needed. So that's why there is a potential issue with selling this gas at the commodity price, because clearly there is a potential cost to this Xcel non-affiliate from the transportation and distribution cost. So being said, that's why we need some protection. So I can make a motion unless some other commissioner has questions.
So Commissioner Hom, then I'm just trying to understand your support of if we do your decision language and that's it, or what else were you? Sorry, I'm slow.
And also, I think I asked Xcel, can you find appropriate docket we can deal with it? And I didn't get that answer. So I am thinking about 11 as a potential temporary holder as a place. And if Xcel can find the right docket, they can do it at the right docket.
Would Ms. Steinhauser, the updated affiliated interest arrangement, the rider isn't the right place to bring that up, is it? Or any other ideas of how to do that?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom, we had proposed addressing that in the rate case, the updated affiliate agreement.
What if you never file another rate case again? Just kidding. Okay, but the subsequent one, not the current rate case, just to be clear.
The current rate case.
The cost for sorry, I'm slow. Not the cost for the NGIA pilot, but just the capital expense of what's going into the rate case cost? Sorry.
Chair Stephen, apologies for the confusion. The issues
thing.
related to the affiliate interest agreement could be raised in the current rate case.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Hammond, do we know if we'll hear from parties if they think that works or not? But
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sivan. Yeah, I think we need to hear from the Department of OAG on that part.
Ms. Hinderly?
Thank you, Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom. I think our concern is the current open rate case is the electric rate case. And in our view, the affiliated interest agreement would be affecting the gas side of their business because it's due to the electrolyzer that's causing the change. I do think it could just be a new notice and comment docket that would be opened. It would just be a new affiliated arrangement between Xcel's regulated gas utility and its unregulated entity, and we could deal with it that way. But it doesn't seem like a good fit to us to put it in the electric rate case. And it seems, there's a lot there, and two, this is really a gas issue, and we do try to respect the accounting being separate between the electric and gas sides of Xcel's. And I hope that it wouldn't be going in the gas rate case, which has been settled and you are hearing next week.
We see a lot of people coming forward. Ms. Campbell, welcome.
Good morning, Nancy Campbell for the department. I think we agree with what OAG just said. I think an affiliate interest might be the better place to look at it since there might be some allocation issues between gas and electric. So I think that's what we had proposed on Tuesday, and I think that would be the cleaner way to do it.
Sorry, I'm slow. A new docket then.
Right, a new affiliate interest docket where we would take a look at it. And if we decided like there other revenues should be captured in the rate case, we could roll that into the rate case, that piece of it. So I think the decision would be cleaner in an separate affiliate interest.
Does that work for you, Ms. Steinhauser?
Chair Stephen, that works, yes.
And Commissioner Hom?
Thank you. Yeah, if party agree with it, I think that will protect the ratepayers' interest.
Okay, and then Commissioner Tuma?
Nope, that answered my questions.
So then, would we be ready to move forward with a motion now? Commissioners, on it?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Then I just need one more sentence in my alternative. Require Xcel to file affiliate interest.
Arrangement in a new docket.
Yep, yes.
Looks like it works. Any objection by the staff, or do we need more time on that, or it's good? Good? Okay, well, then, Commissioner Hom, your motion is the new language on the screen.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes, the motion passes. So, then we're kind of off of the, well, we got through the alternative fuel stuff, so, we also need to move decision option, potentially move decision option 15, or discuss it if we want it to go only to the costs, to allocate them to, which rate?
Let's have 16 is the one we should do, but I could have misstated or miswritten my notes.
Yeah, I think we would need 15 or alternative if OAG modified 15 and 16 too.
16?
Yeah. Which, I wrote, were we gonna, so Xcel, you're not opposed to allocating the cost to non-residential customers. Is that otherwise what's happening here for the Sherco proposal? Where is it going to?
Chair Stephen is currently allocated to all customers, and we are not opposed to 15.
Going to just to non-small commercial? And that's what Cub and Cure and the OAG recommended, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. I think there is an additional modification on the alternative 15 that also excluding small commercial from it.
So what do you think we should do, Commissioner Hom?
Well, I prefer to go with the alternate 15 from the OAG coalition and then 16.
So your motion, which I sound, is Cub, Cure, OAG modified 15.
Yes.
And decision option 16. Any discussion?
Oh, okay, I see. Sorry, I missed the red letters.
Me too. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion prevails. So we didn't decide on Pine Bend yet, and we can move off of that now or just keep it on the side and we won't forget. Why don't we take a break before we move on to the next section? Is 10 minutes enough time, or commissioners? Okay, the commission stands in recess until 11:25 a.m.
take one of those. That's what they're there for. They're not mine. No. I probably should drink them.
Okay, we're going to try to keep moving here. Commissioner Tuma, do you want to move something related to Pine Bend now, or do you want to keep that on the side and come back to it?
We can. I did get some information from our staff that if we did 2.4, that should not cause a problem with the budget. So it would put us at like 52%, so we still have some headroom.
So what would that motion look like?
Madam Chair, the motion would be I guess it would be a new motion would be to reduce the Pine Bend budget to $2.4 million and then adopt TUMA Alternative 10.
Any, Ms. Steinhauser, I know you probably don't like that, but does that work in terms of the language? It's clear enough what the budget number would be then? We'd still be approving the pilot, just reducing the budget. Does that language work from your perspective?
Chair Sieben, I do think the language is clear.
Okay. Any discussion from commissioners? Commissioner Sullivan?
Not to nitpick, but she said the language is clear. I don't think she answered your question. Ms. Steinhauser didn't answer the question if it works. That's my question.
Could you still move forward with the Pine Bend pilot with a budget of $2.4 million, Ms. Steinhauser?
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Sullivan, yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you.
On Commissioner Tuma's motion here, which is the TUMA Alternative 10, we'll take the roll. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes, the motion passes. Okay, next we'd move on to we're off of alternative fuels and to the decision options 17 through Xcel Alt 20. And as I indicated the other day, I think that this is a interesting proposal, but I don't feel like it fits squarely enough in the NGIA mission and objectives. And so I would recommend we deny the pilot at this time, which would be decision option 17, to reject the pilot. And then my intention, as I stated earlier, but we haven't done it yet, would be to redirect that funding into the electrification or the other pilots that we talked about earlier. Is there any discussion, or commissioners, do you support a different path?
I support that.
Then my motion is decision option 17. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Okay, then moving on to Green Cities Accord. Commissioner Sullivan has a new decision option here. Why don't you go ahead, Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. Let me just get my Sullivan language. I'll just my thinking on this is pretty straightforward. I thought that the budget that we allocated from CenterPoints to CenterPoint in this was sufficient to get learnings out of it. I think that, Ms. Steinhauser, I thought, had a good answer the other day when, she said we'd like to run, we're going to learn a lot from running the program ourselves. So I look at them, I heard the OAG's point that it should be scaled down, but my view was, well, they're both serving major metropolitan areas. It felt like it should just be the same size budget. They're both large utilities, and that's why I proposed using the CenterPoint budget for Xcel. I think that is going to be a large enough pilot, and there'll be enough trees that they can have substantial learnings, and that was my thinking on it. It was pretty straightforward and simple. So that's what I did, is proposed using the CenterPoint number, and that's my motion.
And
So it's Sullivan modified 24.
Commissioner Sullivan, would you support additional language added to this that says the tree planting offsets need to occur in Xcel Gas's service territory?
I'm fine with that. My understanding from Ms. Steinhauser was that they plan to be in St. Paul, and probably that small portion of Minneapolis that is in their service territory. So I'm fine with that. I mean,
I just think that helps a little belt and
I think I like that too, because from my perspective, all things being equal, I would prefer that the company is investing in its own service territory, and I think it's not a hard and fast rule for me, but that for me is a strong guideline. So I'm comfortable with that language.
Commissioner Tuma?
And Commissioner Sullivan, I did have some language, and I wanted to run it by Ms. Steinhauser first, but it's meant to require them to do a little more due diligence on looking at who accredits these things. I meant it for both the prior one we just voted against. Doesn't matter for that one, but for this one, I would be curious whether you're okay with requiring them to closely monitor the accrediting agencies to make sure there's no litigation going on, if there's been some third-party audits that say we're not getting the same bang for the buck that we bought these for. So, Ms. Steiner, you guys okay with that language? I don't know if I quite hit it right, but I'm trying to have you at least report your lessons learned from watching it, and given the fact that it's in your service territory, helps us out too.
Ms. Steinhauser?
Chair Seaman, Commissioner Tuma, we're in agreement with the modified Commissioner Tuma 26 and the additional language there.
So if you do a motion on this, Commissioner Sullivan, I hope that you can include that in.
Would you do, Commissioner Tuma, is this additional to the Xcel alternative 26, or are they overlapping? Are they?
Yeah, it is addition to it. So we would do 26, and then this would be basically a sentence at the end of 26, or a paragraph at the end of 26.
Alternative 26.
Alternative 26, yes.
Okay.
I'm just getting my head wrapped around it. Just give me a second.
So just to be...
So my motion would be 24, Xcel alternative 26, and then Tuma 26?
Yeah.
Is that, Commissioner Tuma, what you're asking?
That is what I'm asking.
It would be your...
I'm comfortable with... Yeah, I'm sorry.
You said Xcel's, but I think it would be your language, Sullivan, whatever number yours is.
Modified 24, yeah.
24.
Yeah, with the different budget amount. And then
Yep.
Xcel alternative 26 in the briefing papers, and Commissioner Tuma's new 26 language.
I'm good with that.
Madam Chair, and I'm supportive of your motion, Commissioner Sullivan. I'm happy to go lower, given, if this is $150,000 more for deep weatherization in minority communities versus tree planting. I would pick the lower number that is in Cubs 24, but I'm fine with it if that's where you're comfortable with it at it too. So I mean, that's kind of where my thinking is, but we're moving in the right direction. So,
Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Yeah, I think my position is once again rejecting this project because it's not direct impact to the low-income customers, and I personally prefer more direct weatherization over this one. But also, I think this is a pilot, and I can support the Commissioner Sullivan's motion on the two conditions that Xcel should focus on giving this benefit to the low-income area, but also you have to be mindful about gentrification, because tree takes time to grow. That means the neighborhood might be gentrified. So I think you have to be mindful on this, allocating this, and talk with whoever is doing this. And then second, I think biodiversity is critical because we may lose every tree in the one block if we plant the same tree in that block. So hopefully those two are under your consideration when you are implementing this project. Under that too, that I can support this.
And Ms. Steinhauser, doesn't the Green Cities Accord take care of the long-term maintenance of the trees as well? Isn't that part of the proposal here?
Chair Sieben, that's correct. There's a requirement that they are maintained for at least 25 years.
Yeah. Okay, well, Commissioner Sullivan, you'd move your language then on the screen here? And it sounds like you have support for it. We're ready to vote.
Yeah, I'm going to make one comment, and that is that trees are acceptable uses under the energy efficiency program. So, I mean, they have benefits, and sorry to be argumentative, but I do feel like, there is a significant benefit here. And I also do think that just because folks don't think that growing trees is innovative, programs are innovative, and that this is I think, an innovative programmatic approach. So that's just me being a little crabby, but I do feel like I have to say that.
Everybody here likes trees. Everybody here likes trees.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I didn't want to relitigate. I was trying to be very careful, Commissioner Sullivan, not to relitigate that issue. But it was more to me now. It's just about dollars. So I'm fine with where you're at.
I understand.
On Commissioner Sullivan's amended motion, Commissioner Hom.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion prevails. Okay, then moving on to DEMCOM, biochar, and is there a discussion here on this? Commissioner Tuma or whoever, and Sullivan had his hand up, but I saw you first, Commissioner Tuma.
Yeah, my only concern here, Madam Chair, we had a conversation, and maybe I missed it. It sounded like we were going to have maybe something requiring language to address the double counting, whether there was going to be a discussion on that. And I see nobody put language together, and I apologize.
I also kneecapped the parties by saying, please don't submit new language, so that might be my fault. But
so we talked to the staff about this, and I thought, well, someone will come up with some language, and nobody did. So I don't know if we can come up with language on the fly, Ms. Steinhauser.
I guess staff gave me new language. So can you put it on the screen, please? As we also talked about this, and maybe I was probably supposed to file it, and
I was looking towards you, Madam
there
Chair.
wasn't enough time in hours in the day yesterday.
I understand.
might need if we're gonna if we can like talk about the other components and the costs of biochar too, if we wanna wait for staff to find what they emailed me, if that's okay.
Joe has a question.
Yeah, Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I just had a question about, and I think this is for the company. And my question really is, as I understand it, and I do think that biochar is a very interesting product, and I think there's a lot of a lot of opportunities for it. I disagree that it's not scalable. I also just disagree with the whole idea of saying something's not scalable before we run a pilot. And there are going to be lots of solutions that are needed for addressing climate, but and no one thing can solve it. But anyways, I did want to ask, with biochar in particular, and the money that we're spending here, as I understand, isn't this going to be? I mean, the biochar is going to happen regardless of whether or not we spend the 1.5 million. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Weinberg?
Yes, Commissioner Sullivan. So the biochar is one of the products that comes out of the gasification piece of the DEMCON pilot. So that's correct. But without us purchasing the attributes of the biochar, we don't get to claim the environmental benefits of the biochar.
And is there? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Sullivan.
So it's, I mean, like, okay, so like that's like if we denied the purchase of the environmental benefits for the biochar, I mean, those environmental benefits would still have occurred. Somebody else is going to purchase them, right? I mean, like the biochar is going to happen. They're going to sell it to somebody, correct?
That is the assumption, which is similar to RNG environmental attributes from AMP or different projects. If we don't buy it, then someone else, hopefully for the developers, will buy it. But then we don't get to claim the benefit.
And can you chalk my memory again on the significant attribute that the biochar is? I mean, what are the abatement impacts and everything? Just chalk my memory on that.
So the main component of the methodology that allows us to calculate the benefit is just the storage, the sequestration of carbon in a solid and permanent form, which is the char itself. When you then land apply the char, or if you have another end use that's allowable within the methodology, where that biochar stays stable and permanent, then you have a carbon sequestration, and that's the benefit that you can claim the emission reductions.
So if you claim the attribute, are you in effect, because somebody could use the biochar and they could use it as fertilizer instead of anhydrous ammonia or whatever somebody's using to fertilize, then those emissions would occur. They would just happen. I mean, if we're purchasing the attribute, are we in effect kind of locking it up?
Yes, Commissioner Sullivan. So as part of the methodology, you need to verify that the end use of the biochar was one of the allowed end uses in accordance with the methodology. So in order to issue offsets from this project, then annually you would need to verify the end use was in compliance with the methodology, and a third-party verifier would then be able to calculate what that carbon sequestration benefit was.
So by purchasing the attribute, the $1.5 or $1.4 million for purchasing the attribute, what that does, though, is that allows us to have the program built around that and understanding what that means. If we didn't do that, we would not have those learnings. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I think it's...
So it would allow us to scale up or allow us to look at biochar as a feasible technology it would allow us to basically understand the benefits of biochar. Whereas if we didn't do that, it would just be, in effect, the waste product of creating RNG, right?
Yes, I think biochar is a relatively new source of carbon sequestration, and that's exactly the learning for the companies to better understand the sequestration process and learn from this pilot, and hopefully find other opportunities for biochar.
Okay, I'm good. That's good. Thank you. And you answered my question, and I'm feeling comfortable now being supportive of it. Okay, thank you.
I think my alternative language here is I'd be more comfortable just proposing the first sentence of it, and I don't necessarily think I am disagreeing with our staff live here, sorry, that Xcel could come up with a verification or a file into their annual reports, and at the end of the program that assures us they're not double counting the emissions. Ms. Steinhauser, do you have any idea of how that would actually work if we did just the first sentence of the language that's on the screen? How would you verify or account to ensure that you're not double counting the emissions?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. We are comfortable that we won't be double counting, but Edward has the actual methodology for confirming them.
Yeah, so in studying this biochar methodology from the Climate Action Reserve, in section 5.4, it's pointed out that reconciliation with any other credits needs to happen as part of the calculation itself. So when you calculate the benefits of the carbon sequestration, you need to reconcile that with any other environmental attributes that may have been issued as part of the formation of the biochar itself. So then automatically we would be looking at the RNG calculations, we'd be ensuring that there was no double counting. So that's really part of the methodology already.
And that methodology you would then put into your filing and your learnings. And so with that, I don't know if the department's comfortable with it, but staff, I would propose you just X out the second sentence there because I don't want to include that. And I do think it's important I think it's also important, like the biochar market itself, there'll be learnings if we invest in it. And as long as you're not double counting, I do think it's a good pathway for Minnesota agriculture and for, other reasons to support the DEMCOM, the biochar piece of the pilot. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Lieb, I know you don't support the DEMCOM biochar pilot, but before we move on, or we move this alternative language, is there anything you wanted to add or say?
We wouldn't add anything. I think from a double counting perspective, this gets at those concerns.
Okay. So then, if we're not rejecting it, so then we would just be moving my new language, I think. Is that right, staff? And Commissioner Sullivan?
Can I just have one last clarifying question, just to put a nail in this? So the environmental attribute is generated with the use of the biochar and not the creation of the biochar, right?
Mr. Wenberg?
It is the creation of the biochar as a solid form of carbon that's permanent. And as long as the end use of the biochar doesn't change that permanence, then you can claim that benefit as a carbon sequestration.
Additional benefit.
Yes, the formation of that char is the benefit that you can claim as a carbon sequestration benefit.
So, okay, but then wouldn't the creation of the biochar be included and it'd be accounted for in the RNG pilot itself? Or no? Or is it, no, what the creation of the biochar is accounted for in RNG, and then the other end use is what we would be purchasing.
Yes, Commissioner.
And that would not be double counted.
So, Commissioner Sullivan, you're right that the creation of the biochar, that benefit could have been included in the RNG calculation. We specifically or deliberately confirmed with E3 that they did not include that benefit in the RNG calculation. So that whole benefit has been included in the carbon offset pilot.
Okay.
And that's
Right.
that is what the reconciliation process would look at before you issue any offsets, is exactly that benefit hasn't been double counted.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'd move the highlighted language for CBIN Alternative 27. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes. Then, thank you, everyone. Then moving on to the advanced methane leakage pilot. I think the only, slow me down if needed, but I think the Xcel Alternative 31 is the language we'd need there that was supported by parties.
I would move that, Madam Chair.
Any discussion, commissioners? Commissioner Hahn?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes. Then custom projects for large customers, I think we'd move Xcel Alternative 32.
So moved, Madam Chair. That was my notes.
Any discussion? Commissioner Hahn?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Vote yes, the motion prevails. Community, can I do this any faster? Sorry. Community ground source heat pump, 33 and 35. And I think it was, we discussed who's owning it, and that's contained in those, so that's good. Any discussion of 33 and 35 would be my motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Hahn? Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes, that prevails. Now we're on to the R&D projects, and maybe instead of going through them one by one, what I was thinking is, what I was supportive of in reviewing the record is keeping it as proposed, except pulling out the carbon offset project study, and which is decision option 37 and decision option 38. Because after talking about that with staff, I just think that might be better used in our other proposal that we discussed. And then I think I'd also scoop in there. Wait, is that all R&D stuff, or is? Oh no, that's the next one. Okay. Any commissioners? Do you have other ideas for how to change the R&D projects, or different ideas?
Well, Madam Chair, this is what I had from the discussion, but I'll be honest, I haven't delved into too deeply, that we just adopt 36 and 37. That would reject the one that you just talked about, and then we require the train heating one
Yeah.
to
Right.
be in the next eco.
So my motion then would be have train, which all the parties support, have the train project be in the next eco triennial, but pull out the carbon offset project study and the utilization technology development project. And we're still good on the overall numbers for everything if we do that, I think, is what I talked to staff about earlier.
So you do 36, 37, and 38.
Yes, but Ms. Steinhauser.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. On 36, That is a commercial air source heat pump and thermal storage project. And so in talking about CEO's new 1 and 3, the parties did agree that if we went that direction with the NGIA, this would be duplicative. And we would want the department to confirm, but that we'd be okay not moving forward with train in ECO because that would be duplicative then of projects happening here.
That sounds reasonable. Does anybody, if we didn't move 36, I don't think the department, Mr. Fryer, it sounds like you're okay with that, but do you want to confirm that?
Chair Seaman, yep, we would be fine with that.
For the record, Mr. Dufferin was nodding his head yes, so.
So then my motion would be just 37 and 38. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Great. Moving along to pilot cost contingencies. Commissioner, who has like a idea here of what we should do or wants to talk? Commissioner Tuma?
Yeah, I have a Cub Cure OAG modified 40 as Xcel supporting that, so I would move that. And then I also have Cub Cure OAG modified 41. I don't know if Xcel supports that one, but I would move that one also.
I think Xcel, I wrote, you did say they supported 40 and 41. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is that what you just said, Commissioner
Yep.
Tuma?
So that would be my motion, those two.
Any discussion? Commissioner Hunt?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Then I think for the job creation, it's pretty easy to move 42, 43, 44, and 45.
Hang on just 1 second, Madam Chair. For our order writer, it was the Cub Cure OAG modified 41. And same Cub Cure OAG modified 40.
Okay. Mr. Whitty, the motion was clear. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Can we move the 42 through 45 and the next set is together? Or what, commissioners, what do you want to do under the impact on low and moderate income customers? I think it's a little changing if we're like creating these new pilots that are focused more on low and moderate income customers, but I don't think it's bad to move them anyway, just.
So, Madam Chair, here's what I had on that when in looking at this, and I have a question, I guess, for Xcel and the unions too, is that definitely supportive of the 42 through 45. It just raised questions of 50 and 51, and my understanding is that Xcel and the unions prefer essentially 42 through 45 when we don't need 50 and 51 because most of those issues are already addressed or dealt with the prior. And so, so if you're doing them as a package, I would pull out 50 and 51 and not adopt those. But I want to confirm that's the understanding of the unions and the company.
So, another way to say that, I think, is, Ms. Steinhauser, why first are you opposed to 50 and 51?
Thank you, Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma. Largely because the employment of skilled workers for these pilots is going to be through third parties, so we won't have the control to implement 50 and 51, and we agree that 42 through 45 kind of gets to the same.
And Mr. Pranis, are you still on line?
Yes, Chair Sieben, I am on a plane that's about to take off. I apologize. I was hoping to be with you today, but I would agree with Ms. Steinhauser's comment that we believe that we've adequately and judiciously taken care of these issues in the agreed points 42 to 44.
Okay, and state your name, please.
Sorry, Kevin Prentice on behalf of Land and Minnesota, North Dakota.
Safe travels. So Commissioner Tuma moves 42 through 49 and decision option 52.
I believe that is correct, Madam Chair. Yes.
Any discussion? Commissioner Hom.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I vote yes. Then we're going on to additional reporting requirements, and Xcel said they would support yesterday or Tuesday, said they'd support 53 now, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think my motion would be 53, Xcel alternative 54, and staff alternative 55 in this section.
Those are non-controversial ones. I do have some questions on the original 54, but
Go ahead.
why not? I mean, I'm still flabbergasted why we wouldn't want to have tracking and reporting on energy consumption. Water consumption is good too, but I'm still confused why. I kept going around this in my brain, and apparently my notes were not. This is getting towards the end of the day too, so my notes were probably not very good. But I'm still struggling why we wouldn't want to know about energy consumption. This is what we do.
Is it going to be tracked and reported somewhere else, Ms. Steinhauser?
Thank you, Chair Sieben and Commissioner Tuma. My understanding is that energy consumption is calculated through the GREET modeling, so it is accounted for in that sense. There are also other complications, like where the gas utility for example, the Prairie Island Indian Community Weatherization Project, the Dakota Electric is their electric provider, so we don't necessarily have line of sight to all of it. But to the extent that we do, it's accounted for in the GREET modeling.
So could we say require Xcel to track and report energy consumption for each pilot as available? Or as, like, I don't know why you, the GREET model to the extent possible? Does that help?
Yeah, that would help a lot, yeah.
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, we would agree with that.
So, Madam Chair, if you want to throw that into...
Energy consumption for each pilot to the extent feasible. And then, so then that would be, what was my motion then?
So I think your motion would be 53, 54 as modified, just energy consumption as practical, and take out the water consumption language for Sherco.
Well, that's still
And then you do
54.
alternative 54, which is the water consumption at Sherco, and then staff alternative 55, I think is the motion. I'm looking at Trey, making sure.
Yeah, 54, no, we want to keep water consumption in, because
Right.
it's,
So you would by just doing alternative,
doing it
Xcel
54.
alternative 54.
as well. Okay, got it. Is that, commissioners, are you okay with that? Yeah, it's as on the screen. So they're tracking energy and for each pilot, and then also water for Sherco. Right?
That's what I think it says.
On that, Commissioner Hom,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay, we're, budget flexibility. This is, where I kind of need help. Commissioner Hom, do you have ideas here?
Thank you, Chair Sivan. Originally, I was going with the 58, but given that we are changing so many projects within this decision process, I'm comfortable with just leave as it is or just do the 56.
58 was what, well, 58 is, I think what I had circled that everyone was okay with, and that whole grid is still on there, just not on the chart.
Yeah, that's why originally I was going with it, but given that we have changed so many within this decision today, I don't know whether Xcel need more flexibility than more restricted under the 58. We can ask Xcel about it.
Ms. Steinhauser, if we did 56 and 58, does that work? Or is that what you're supportive of? And then we'll ask Mr. Crawford, I think, too.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Commissioner Hom, I'm just reading these to see if they're in conflict. We generally appreciate the flexibility given that there have been so many changes. So our preference would be for 56.
Just 56.
Correct.
And then, but you were also not opposed to 58 on Tuesday. So I don't, maybe, are they duplicative, or staff recommends we do both still?
We might need a break on this
We
one.
might need a break, yeah. Okay. And Mr. Crawford, before we break, will you provide any comments on what you support?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you. We don't believe that you can do 56 and 58 together. 58 takes the place of 56. It's modifications to Xcel's original proposal. And really, Xcel can still have that budget flexibility. It just has additional reporting requirements and identifies a pathway for review for those especially large movements of funds between one pilot to another. One of the other things that we really like about 58 is it maintains a separation between, say, the RNG and alternative fuel budgets versus all the other pilots, which, they can move funds between the alternative fuel pilots, but you're not taking funds from weatherization, energy efficiency, things of that nature. There's just additional clarifications and kind of restrictions to make sure that each of the pilots has a chance to perform to reach kind of full, a chance to perform. Sorry.
You can still move funds, say, from weatherization to, I don't know, whatever, pick your medicine, R&D project.
Madam Chair, Commissioner.
You just have some additional reporting requirements and a cap that's what I'm reading, the cap on it of 75%.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, yes, you can move funds between the alternative fuel levels or the non-alternative fuel pilots too. And this is exactly what was approved in CenterPoint's plan. The only difference is 58A, which was something that we had originally proposed regarding the use of the reserve funding. And then Xcel had requested a change to the 58I regarding the amount of time that OAG and department would have to look at these larger budget flexibility requests, and we oppose that. Having 10 days is not sufficient when you're moving up to 25% or more of a budget.
Commissioner Sullivan?
I'm good with decision option 56 since we've moved things around. I don't have deep thoughts on this. So
I still like 58, but that's, and to me, it's just the consistency of what we did with CenterPoint is probably what's driving me on that one.
Mm-hmm. And on Tuesday, Ms. Steinhauser said they weren't opposed to, oh no, they were, I don't know what you said. Sorry. That was 50, Xcel alternative 58I. So, I don't know. What should we do? Take a break?
It's up to you, Madam Chair.
Or Commissioner Hom, what do you think?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Once again, I think it's different from the CenterPoint case because CenterPoint case, we didn't change much. And this case, we significantly changed, and we already took care of an internal switch, which I think 58 was trying to accomplish with this our explicit order. We are shifting significant amount from the RNG and other project to this energy efficiency and electrification side. Already we did it. So that's why I don't know how much we can practically get out of this 58. That's why I say 56 should be better option to accommodate changing circumstance with Xcel.
Here's the struggle I'm having. 56 seems pretty broad and doesn't have any kind of check on it. That's what I thought a lot of what we did with 58 is put a lot of checks and balances kind of in there so the parties can look at it. They can still move money around, and there's limitations on it much more than 56. So I was just trying to, and I haven't even thought whether we can create a more flexible 58 to reflect what's going on in 56. That's the part that I would talk to staff about. I just thought 58 was flexible enough, but I get what you're saying, and I would have no problem going that direction. I just don't want to lose a lot of the protections that were kind of built into 58.
Is Commissioner Tuma, is 58 Xcel alternative 58.1 better than 58? Is it like a medium ground between 56 and 58? Mr. Harsh.
Not really.
Chair Sieben, Commissioners, to clarify, Xcel Alternative 58I is a alternative language for one of the subparts of decision option 58. It's not a replacement for the entirety of decision option 58.
I don't know what to do here. Staff, do you want to, let's just move, we might have to take another short break. So let's just not vote on this quite yet. And then if we have to meet with staff, commissioners can talk to staff about their preferences too, before we vote on that. Because we still have a ways to go here. So cost recovery, I have 59, 60, and 61 circled, is that right?
I would move those, Madam Chair.
And then I think can we move the cost effectiveness objectives in there too?
Then I would also move 62, 63, and 65 and 66 is what my notes say.
And then in addition to that, we would sweep up again staff alternative 55, which I think I wasn't real clear we wanted in the last motion. Any discussion of that? Mr. Whitty?
I'm sorry, just if we could clarify the motion.
Commissioner Tuma?
I thought we already adopted 55, but if we...
We did, but staff said we needed to reaffirm it with Mr. Whitty.
So staff alternative 55?
Correct.
Okay, and then 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 65, 66. So we wouldn't do 64. Not do 64. That's what I have.
Are we good? Commissioner Hom on the motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Then next we're on, what are we on, Commissioner Tuma?
Objective modifications, I think is what we're on.
So, I think we would move 67, 69, 70, 72, and staff alternative 73 is what I have circled. Commissioners, if you want to.
I had in mind also doing 71 to conform with CP.
Right.
And then 68, which is, could be debatable. This is, instead of using center points number of, we would use the number that Xcel put in their application, which is a little higher, my understanding. or lower.
So will you make the motion and we'll just withdraw mine?
Okay, yeah,
Because,
so
that'd be great.
I had 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, and staff alternative 73.
Ms. Steinhauser.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. Particularly on the cost effectiveness objectives, with the modifications that have been made today, we've reduced or eliminated budget from some of our lowest abatement cost proposals. And so meeting even before that, we were very supportive of using the $200 per metric ton, but particularly given those adjustments, the company is not confident that we can hit the same number that was calculated based on our original proposal.
Again, this is just a
So you would propose that Commissioner Tuma not move
68.
68?
And 71, giving that flexibility again, given the changes, so that the company can make these adjustments and still have achievable objectives.
And you'll still be reporting on those objectives. It's just tweaking the metrics a little bit.
That is correct, yeah.
Seems fine to me, Commissioner Tuma.
I'm fine. I was just going off what my notes said.
So Commissioner Tuma amends his motion to take out
68 and 71.
68 and 71. Any questions for commissioners? Okay, then Commissioner Hom,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you. Now we're getting into the, what are we at?
Proposed
74?
planning and for filing annual status report. Proposed plan.
Commissioner Sullivan, do you want to do a motion for this next section on include 74 and 75 and then the eco stuff that's coming up after that?
Yeah, I do. From my perspective, I liked 74 and I like 75. I liked the, I thought 75 was good, and it's good to drive as many things as we can through eco and SIP. So comfortable moving that.
Okay, on 74 and 75, Commissioner Hom,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Yes.
I vote yes. And then the reference to eco, some of this might have to get tweaked a little bit because we're doing some of the things in Exhibit D after we get to that. But Commissioner Sullivan, did you have a proposal for these? This set?
Which one are you looking at?
I'm looking at the reference to eco and starting at number 76 through
76, basically. Well,
Through-
77.
through 77.
I was comfortable with the modified DOC alternative 76, that would be what we would refer it. Unless the department, I know that the department is supportive of the just their original alternative 76. Maybe if we could hear from the department on which they prefer.
Mr. Fryer, are you still tracking? We're looking to how to provide guidance for your work here.
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Sullivan, we would support the modified DOC Alternative 76 that Commissioner Sullivan just mentioned, but then I think removing any duplicative projects that we spoke about earlier.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Could we just take out the section that says of the projects from Exhibit D, Xcel shall include? I don't know if, like, you'll still be discussing them, right, in the upper part? Or is that, I don't know.
I don't know, Mr. Fryer, I mean,
Miss
I guess I would,
CE is nodding, we could do that, if that helps Commissioner Sullivan or Mr. Fryer. You know, I think we're directionally aligned. It's just like we're not ordering them to explicitly include those anymore, especially if we're doing some of them in NGIA here.
right, I mean, the only thing that I would think is, I mean, we wouldn't want them to, just in the normal course of, you know, SIP and eco triennials, preclude them from moving forward on, you know, these projects kind of in the main. But I mean, I'm fine if Mr. Fryer thinks we should remove it, or if we should keep it in. I'm indifferent to it. I don't know, Mr. Fryer.
Jesse and Commissioner Sullivan, I think I'm indifferent as well. Be interested to hear from CE or other stakeholders. But we're certainly, you know, happy to coordinate that process with the company if it remains.
Maybe Mr. Duffrin.
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Sullivan, I think the way so I'll give you one alternative, which would be to not go off of this DOC Alternative 76 and instead use the Xcel Alternative 76, because that's a little bit more open-ended. Really anything could be proposed in there, and just seems a little less directional and allow parties to maneuver. So that would be one option, Xcel Alternative 76 instead of this. Or if you are going to give this direction, I think you've got the list right. You could move deep energy retrofits up to that top. We had it crossed out, but that might be something that's ready by the next eco plan and might be worthy of consideration. So those are my only thoughts. I think either way is fine.
Mr. Fryer, what do you think? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry not to go through you.
Go ahead, Mr. Fryer, please.
Jesse and Commissioner Sullivan, again, happy to support Mr. Duffrin's suggestion there, either using Xcel Alternative 76 or sort of continuing with the modified list on the DOC Alternative 76.
Sounds like either will work. Commissioner Sullivan?
I'll just go with Xcel Alternative 76 then.
I have
great confidence in the eco staff and the stakeholders and participants that they will, they'll do what is needed.
Okay.
So I have comfort that the more open-ended language will get good stuff.
Ms. Eichten?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. The CEOs just wanted to note one thing that would be lost with going with 77, Xcel's 77 alternative, Xcel's alternative 76 versus the modified DOC alternative 76, which we tend to support, is the underlined addition, which would that the department would subsequently file in this docket a summary of these discussions, which we were supportive of, and I believe the department was supportive of, just to build the record in this docket of what happened with those pilots.
Yeah, so Commissioner Sullivan, would you, since Mr. Fryer was already okay with that language above, could you move that sentence into your Xcel Alternative 76?
Yes.
On Commissioner Sullivan's motion there, Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Okay, we're still moving along here for other new decision options.
I had my notes, Madam Chair, and I'm looking to staff to do modified DOC Alternative 77, requiring Xcel to meet with the department and interested stakeholders regarding the all-electric residential building project initiative in Colorado. So I don't know, I'm looking at them, I had it in my notes to do, and
Was that a question for Mr. Fryer?
yeah.
Mr. Fryer, do you support DOC Alternative 77?
Chair Sieben, yes, and I think it could be done, at the same time and in the same process as 76.
I would move modified DOC Alternative 77.
Commissioner Sullivan?
I'm just curious, from the department, what would this look like? I would normally think that something like this would go through the CARD program, which is the research and development program for ECO. I'm just kind of curious what this would do, or how it would mechanically work.
Mr. Fryer?
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Sullivan, I think this would be a sort of chance for the department, for the company, and other interested groups to take a look at the Colorado Clean Heat Plan and have a discussion on its suitability for future inclusion in ECO. Certainly, it's something that could be considered in CARD, but we're sort of running there on a different funding cycle and everything else that wouldn't maybe provide the sort of expedited review that 77 would.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fryer.
On modified DOC Alternative 77, Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes. Then, so we have the budget. We have the other new decision options section, Commissioner Tuma?
I don't know how this interacts with your decision options, so I'm a little nervous to make any motions at this stage.
I think it would be new 78. So it would be, my motion would be, we still would do new 78 as proposed by Cub, Cura, and the OAG. And the Xcel said Tuesday they would support that. Then new 79 is
See, this is where I don't know how it works with your
yeah, we still have to move my language too.
language. That's where
But the
78 though I think is fine, Madam Chair.
Yeah, 78 is fine.
I was looking at 79 was causing me nervousness.
And then Trey, please go ahead.
Chair Sieben, Commissioners, to clarify what Xcel's new 79 is, Xcel Energy had replaced a train heating thermal storage R&D project with the R&D project described in new 79, and this is clarifying that change from the train R&D project to this new continuous exterior R&D project, but it does not interfere with Chair Sieben's new decision option that we discussed earlier.
Okay. And then Mr. Harsh, do you want to comment on with the modifications we made, the new numbers you calculated in your magical spreadsheet that would plug into my decision option language from earlier?
Chair Sieben, the magical spreadsheet says that the budget we would have available to
devote
to your new decision option would be $6,750,000 $699 would be what we would be able to move towards your new proposal.
And then just to emphasize, like the way my thing is drafted, we might have to change it then. The budget would be 25% of that, almost or a little over 6.5 million would go towards the commercial pilot, and 75% of that would go to the residential one. And so maybe we need to just change that or take out the percentages, or if we want more direction to which one. Otherwise, there's that cap I put in my mind. So I know we're pressed for time here, but can we take a break and then give the company and others time to just comment on that portion of it, the percentages, and then also staff wants to talk to commissioners briefly about the budget flexibility piece.
We can move 50 or 78 and 79, Madam Chair, before we wrap. So I would make that motion.
On Commissioner Tuma's new 78 and new 79, that's clear, Mr. Whitty. Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. And then okay. So we have a little bit more time, Commissioner Sullivan? Sorry to put you on the spot, but so we can recess for 10 minutes. Is that going to be enough? And then we'll come back at 12:45. The commission stands in recess. Okay, the commission will come back from our recess, and we'll start with Commissioner Tuma on the budget flexibility piece.
Madam Chair, talked to staff a little bit more, trying to see if I could marry 56 and 58 together, but apparently I am not a matchmaker. So I think 58 is our best option, so I would move decision option 58. To be clear, that's all the subsections through A through J, but not Xcel's 58I, which just changes a date from 30 to 10. So that's what I would move.
And that, just to remind folks, is like not opposed by the company and supported by the department, it looks like, according to my notes. Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Yeah, I also consult with the staff, and I'm convinced because Xcel can always come back and ask. If you go to the office and then recalculate these things, if you think it's infeasible, I think we have a reconsideration, and any other process you can come back to us. So that's why I'm convinced that I can support 58 as of now. Thank you.
I support it as well, Commissioner Tuma. Commissioner Sullivan?
Good.
On Commissioner Tuma's motion, Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Then we need to move to the language I proposed earlier today, and first turn to Xcel to see if you have comments on how the numbers would work out or anything else on it. Ms. Steinhauser.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. In speaking with the other parties, again, they've put the numbers to this, so we were going to defer to them in terms of whether or not they think the split is sufficient between the two pilots.
Okay, who wants to take the lead on that then, or talked about the numbers? Mr. Duffrin?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. We think that, so this isn't exactly your
That's okay.
25-75 split. However, if there is 6.6, if that's the number we're targeting, then we think 2 for the commercial would be sufficient. We could
2 million.
Enough there, yeah, 2 million, and then 4.6 for the other.
And for the CEOs, is that your understanding or you're supportive of that?
Thank you, Chair Stephen. We are supportive. I think we're trying to balance our interest and the interest of many of the other parties in this docket with seeing a lot of this money go towards low to moderate and income households, and are favorable of the 75%, but do understand based on our discussions with CE that a 2 million would be more benefit or be the minimum to have a meaningful commercial thermal storage pilot. So I think we're comfortable either way, depending on what the commission wants.
Okay. Well, this was coming out of your idea and the filings that were made, and so, I'm a little agnostic to the exact way this is split up, but the department or anybody else want to comment if we did it this way? Mr. Fryer?
Yep. Chair Stephen, the department would support this as written.
Okay. And Mr. Zychek's giving a thumbs up too. And that's okay to say the budget shall be at least 4.6 million? Ms. Steinhauser? I guess, but.
Is. Because they have flexibility.
There's still some flexibility built in.
Chair Sieben, I believe that works.
Wait, why that?
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the second bullet
Top number
point.
should
Yeah,
be
the
6.
top. Who just changed the top number? That's wrong. We can't lose $2 million there.
Even I know the math doesn't work.
Yeah, even I could catch that. Ms. Steinhauser, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Sieben. So under the first bullet, it's up to 2 million. It should probably mirror that language in the second bullet of up to 4.6.
Yeah, because at the top, you'd be directed to use the 6.6.
So in the next bullet point at the end, up to 4.6 instead of at least.
And then again, like the onus is on the parties to work with Xcel to make this negative checkoff thing work. So thank you in advance for everyone for hoping that we don't have to talk about it again. We can just get it going and get it, we don't have to come back if everybody thinks it's working out well, right? Any other, Commissioner Hom?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. I just want to point out we need to delete the million, otherwise it will be trillion.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Whitty on the second bullet, just.
Darn, you're so close.
That's coming from the federal government at this rate, I bet.
Yeah, we don't want to ride that train, do we?
Okay, on my amended language, is there any other discussion? Commissioner Hom?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
I also vote yes. And then are we missing anything else or any other decision options, commissioners or parties that we're overlooking here? Okay, then overall, we don't need to take an overall vote on the whole thing either. So on behalf of everybody, unless anybody else wants to say anything, thank you to the parties and everyone for your extensive work on this docket. We're looking forward to getting these pilots launched and seeing all the benefits that come back to the public.
Mr. Defford, good job pitching in here, I tell you. I don't know who left you high and dry, but we'll give that person a hard time at some point.
Okay, thank you. With that, in a couple minutes here, we'll move on to the item number 3.
Thank you. Good work. You have to get a bigger briefcase there, Adam. Making me nervous, buddy. I thought we were just saying it looks okay.
Okay, if the folks for Dakota Electric want to come forward, we're ready to get moving here, so we can get.
We'll chase other folks out. The hallway's all remodeled. They can go hang out there now.
The next item and the last item on our agenda for today is item number 3. Mr. Ubani, please introduce the agenda item when you're ready.
Well, it's no longer morning. Good afternoon, Chair Stephen and Commissioners. Agenda item number 3 is docket number E111/GR-24-400 in the matter of the application of Dakota Electric for authority to increase rates for electric service in Minnesota. The questions before the Commission today are: does Dakota Electric application for a rate increase petition comply with the filing requirements in Minnesota Statutes Section 216B.16, Minnesota Rules Part 7825.3100 to 7825.4400, other relevant Minnesota statutes, Commission rules, and relevant Commission orders? The second question: should this matter be referred to the Office of the Administrative Hearing for a contested case hearing? And if so, what should be the scope of the hearing? After the briefing papers were filed, Dakota Electric filed revised decision options, updating decision option number 10 by adding the word updated just before interim, and changed the amount of the interim rate increase from 20.5 million to 20.428 million. Also, DEA slightly amended decision option number 13 by changing the interim rate increase from 8.6 to 9.5%. The parties and staff are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we go to first to the to Dakota Electric, and if you wanted to address anything on the late filings, Mr. Heinen, I understand you wanted to, so please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Sieben, Adam Heinen with Dakota Electric Association. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say from the letter there. We just wanted to file that to make sure that the interim petition and our request there was clear, and then make sure that it reflected our position fully. Speaking to the 8.6%, that was just a back of the envelope quick calculations, try and make sure that the department and parties were able to get their completeness comments filed as soon or in a timely manner. Then we went back and did some further calculations to make sure we properly accounted for the AGI, and that's where we came up with there were still 9.5%, but just applied to everything except the AGI portion of the bill, and it comes up with the revised interim request of 20.43 million roughly.
And thank you. And for the department, any general comments on the decision options or things you wanted to raise?
Hi, Mary Beth Kerwald for the department. I'm joined by Nancy Campbell, and John Kunder is online for the department. The department supports decision options 1, 4, 6, 7, 9, DEA modified 10, 12 with modifications, DEA modified 13, 15, 16, and 17. Right now, decision option 12 is phrased to be contingent on decision option 11. We would propose that it's no longer linked to decision option 11. And DEA is asked to file revised schedules and calculations reflecting the corrections to the 2 errors that the department noted in their comments, as well as clarifying the information from work papers 15 that DEA addressed in reply comments.
Okay, and thank you. And so would there be modifications? What are the modifications to 12? I didn't catch that.
To unlink decision option 12 from 11.
And how do you propose we do that? I'm not fully tracking.
I think you just adopt 12 as it is right now, right?
Ms. Campbell?
Yes, that's correct. We just wanted to make sure that there wasn't confusion. It was linked to 11, but it doesn't need to be, and that will address our concerns. And then we just want to make sure if you can mention the language again for the specific for the two changes to make those corrections to their schedules. And what was Schedule 15?
Clarifying the information from work paper 15 that DA addressed in reply comments.
And what number is in that? Is that in? Sorry, I'm slow, but
It's to incorporate that language into 12.
So it would say, required Dakota Electric to file revised financial schedules and calculations, and then something? Or, sorry.
Maybe including errata for the two adjustments the department identified, including work paper 15.
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. Including DEA filing errata testimony and schedules for the two errors that the department identified in its comments, including work paper 15.
For the two errors the department identified in
our comments. Is that sufficient?
As long as she's nodding her head, that's all we care about.
And Mr. Heinen, you're okay with that amended language?
Chair Seaman, Commissioners, yes, we're fine with it. We have the stuff ready, so even the 5 days isn't an issue on our end.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan had a question, I think.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. I guess my only question is on decision option 7D, how much the top 10 executive compensation costs would be recovered in rates. My sense is it's a cooperative. Their board is elected by their members, and there's a pretty powerful feedback loop there if they're out of sync. And I don't think, from my perspective, we need to include that in the rate case options. I'd be interested to hear what the company and the department say.
Mr. Heinen.
Chair Seaman, Commissioners, we're prepared to support the information if parties request more about the top 10 executives. I wouldn't say supportive, but I appreciate the comments by Commissioner Sullivan because I think we would have the same opinion there. But if the Commission wishes us to provide additional information, we're fully prepared to support the reasonableness of our executive and top 10 employee compensation.
And as a cooperative, are you required to file your top 10 executive costs like the investor-owned utilities are under statute? Do you know?
Chair Sieben, yes. We, I don't know if is it with the IRS or, yeah, it's with the federal government. We have to file a Form 990, so that brings a detailed account. I wouldn't say detailed, maybe said, but certain buckets for the top 10 employee and also the directors. We have to report that annually.
So it's already it's in this rate case filing already then, because it's required by statute. It is for the investor-owned utilities, and I was just wondering if you knew and I didn't look it up. It's just like, is there a distinction in statute over the commission looking at cooperative versus investor-owned utilities top 10?
Chair Seaman, we already included the top 10 information in our filing. We also have a Form 7 that's not exactly the 990.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly could file the Form 990 if that's what you want.
I wasn't really asking. I was just trying to ascertain if there was a difference between what you already had to file by statute versus what the investor-owned utilities. You know, I tend to agree with Commissioner Sullivan, like it's co-op, so it's a little bit different, but I don't think like taking it out doesn't mean it's still not going to be considered or looked at too, because it's already part of your filing. Anyway.
Yes, we've filed in compliance with the statute, so we have the top 10 compensation information is in the filing.
And if parties want to get it, they can ask you for it too. So just calling it out at this stage makes no sense in my mind too. So I agree with Commissioner Sullivan.
Okay.
Stephen, Commissioner, too, I don't know if you were directing a question to me or not, but yes, if people ask Discovery, we'll be responsive. So. And
Ms. Campbell, their top 10 exact comp is already in the filing. But because they're a cooperative, are you okay if we don't call out that you explicitly developed the issue around this? You still can. I think that's the way this works, but if you want, but.
Yeah, the information is in the filing, and we certainly plan to take a look at it, but you certainly don't need to order us to do so. So
okay.
We don't have a strong preference on that.
Yeah, let's just take it out then. But one thing I wanted to, when we get to there, we can. I was wondering, Mr. Heinen, if in other rate cases, if you could put a statement in and then the parties would be able to comment too. I know the data center that's, I think, in your service territory, right, in Farmington, that's going to be, it's under construction. Could you include like a description of how, once that's online, it's going to help with cost issues related to your overall rates? I think as these large loads come online in different electric service territories, it's helpful for there to be a thorough discussion so that ratepayers can see the benefit of this new load growth within your service territory. We did it in other rate cases lately too. It's just like the similar thing where the records developed around this issue.
Chair Sieben, I'm just thinking it's not me trying to evade your request for information, but I just want to clarify that the proposed data center in Farmington is not currently under construction. It's in the proposal phase and whatnot. So me being me there. But yeah, if there's a request to build the record and make a statement about how, sort of theoretically, because we still don't have numbers in there, we're still years out. If, knock on wood, these things happen, we're still years out for how there will be realized in rates. But I'm more than happy to build the record with an explanation of, at a high level, how a large load is beneficial to the rest of the
So
system.
it won't come online under, sorry, I'm not up to date, in the duration of this filing, most likely? And your electric service, would you file an electric service agreement with the commission when you're ready? Or is that anticipated to happen anytime in the next year? Or don't know?
Chair Sieben, commissioners, the first question, no, any large load of the size that we've been talking about from a data center perspective, that won't be realized during the course of this proceeding, unless it turns into like Kern River at the FERC and take 25 years. But that's just a side note, which it won't. And then, what your second question
When
was?
is the ESA going to be filed?
Yes.
Approximately. I'm not trying to make you make news here, but it's just, I'm just curious. Or you don't know?
Might be, there's some things happening right now, so I haven't started, I'll be honest, I haven't started down the path of a formal ESA. If we have something, hopefully it would be in the year, but I can't know for certain when. But if something does materialize, it will be a negotiated rate, so certainly the commission will see a filing from me when it, or from Dakota Electric rather, when we have an ESA ready, if it reaches that point of the negotiations.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Campbell, like we did this in another electric rate case, and it was just like develop the record around it. Maybe because of what Mr. Heinen said, like it's premature to put it in this one now, but any thoughts on the topic?
We can certainly ask some information requests and get a little more information around it to see if it's premature, if it's something we should look at in a future rate case.
Okay, let's not put anything in the formal like language here, then I would think it's just like everybody knows it's out
Madam
there.
Chair, I don't think it is premature because you typically don't file rate cases very often. Your last rate case was it 4 years ago? I don't remember now.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, we filed in September 2019.
And so there's a good likelihood that whatever rate structure we're creating now, it's going to be filed under that. The service agreement will be filed under that. And so just having a record built around it and some understanding what that would mean if something is filed for a large customer that's going to almost triple your load, how would that look and what does that look like, and how should we think about that as we make rates? In this case, we probably won't change anything, but it's just good to know, I guess, that there could be a major load coming on, more than likely not during the pendency of the rate case, but pretty much during the life of the rates that we're setting.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, I'd agree that that's a potential reality given our cadence on rate cases, and obviously past performance is not an indication of future returns. But again, I'm more than happy to build a record around it. It'll be more high level discussion, but certainly if we were able to secure that much load, we would need to look at how the rates are constructed, because the rate design would not, when we get to that point, the rate design isn't going to reflect how it's going to be a completely different operation of the system. So yeah, we would certainly look at if it happens, how that's going to impact rates and how we would need to adjust them to make sure it's just and reasonable for all members and ratepayers.
And to Commissioner Sullivan's earlier point on executive comp, the reason we don't have to be as nervous in this situation is we do have a board out there who's representing all the ratepayers of the area, and they're not going to obviously make a decision that's going to be adverse to their interests. So that I'm not as nervous about this one as I may be for, Xcel, but it still is a factor that we need to be appraised of. So I'm less nervous about it, but it's worth being appraised of, I guess is the way I see it. So,
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Siebert. I just want to know the mechanism how to your member, your co-op, so your ratepayers are your member and shareholder. If there is a positive benefit from this deal, potentially, can they realize this benefit right away, either through the fuel clause or the dividend, or do you have to file a rate case?
Mr. Heinen.
Bear with me a moment. Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom, I think it would have to be something with a rate adjustment. This is off the top of my head. We obviously pay out capital credits, a dividend return to members over time, but that's looking at margins or profits, for lack of a better term, in the past. So it's not reflecting the current makeup. That's probably the best answer I can have at the time. Again, these are still speculative loads, and certainly we would be very happy for ourselves and also the membership for the benefits it can provide, but they're still speculative. So in terms of a strategy on how best that we want to realize the benefits to the rest of the membership, we haven't solidified those yet, because as I always joke at work, we got to get the fish into the boat first before we can worry about those.
Yeah, I understand, but also there is some potential concern that you put it in the rainy day fund rather than give it back to the ratepayers, given the ratepayers are facing challenge in some class. I don't know your ratepayers' economic circumstance, but we are seeing a lot of challenging population with the energy price. So that's why I'm trying to focus on the mechanism to realize this benefit right away rather than waiting for later time or just put it in the rainy day fund. But I think, as you say, it's a speculative, but put that in mind. Thank you.
Just quickly, Commissioner, Chair Seaman, Commissioner Hom, I would say from a corporate and a board perspective, we're not looking to, create a large fund so that we can, not file a rate case for 20 years or something like that. We'd want to make sure that, again, we have an obligation to all of our members, regardless of their, their usage, if they're an apartment or a large data center, and this has been conveyed to potential large loads. So we have that obligation to serve each of them equally, and that means we have an obligation to make sure that they're treated as fairly and justly as possible. And that would mean we need to make sure that if rate adjustments or however it works, that everybody shares in it, and we want to make sure that happens as soon as possible and not, wait for, we want to make sure that we have speed in that. So I don't know if that's a promise or obligation or whatnot, but that's our thoughts at this point.
And if you do file a ESA with the commission, we could have a discussion with parties, obviously, at the time about, if we're granting approval of an ESA, when would the next rate case come then, for example? Because if I'm following the discussion, like if the large load comes online, then you may need to file another rate case to help reset or distribute costs across all customer classes more evenly. So all customer classes see the benefits of it? No?
Chair Sieben, I think we could certainly have that discussion there. I don't want to, as always, when rate cases can be compelled or not, because Ms. Stasny will probably kick me under the table or something like that. But no, we would be certainly open to have that discussion, and we want to, parties, so we can figure out how to deal with this. Because, again, as I said, I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm trying to also be realistic in what we're been negotiating and where the timelines and stuff. But we want to make sure that we're open. We're open to having the discussions with the commission if there is an ESA about how best we want to deal with it, and we want to make sure that all ratepayers are treated freely. Well, freely, obviously, they want to be free, but also fairly.
Okay. Any other questions for commissioners? And then does someone have a motion to make on this?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I can get one off. Decision option 1, subject 4, 6, 7, but not 7D, 9, DE modified 10, Department modified 12, DE modified 13, 15, 16, and 17, I believe covers it.
Okay, any discussion? Commissioner Sullivan, you're good with the motion? On to Commissioner Tuma's motion, Commissioner Hom.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuma.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The motion passes 4-0. Thank you, everyone. The agenda meeting is adjourned for the day.